Alright, finally. This took me long enough to get connection, and I hope people can hear. This is awesome. I am actually live on location in the middle of a softball tournament, and it's really fun. I ended up getting team captain made shirts, and they were based on Cards Against Humanity, and I don't know if you can see this, but I got delegated as Tasteful Sideboob. Super happy with that. Really fun to be able to be participating in this tournament, right? That's just nice to be able to get out, swing the bat before the season's over. So, no, and it's funny, the last game here is literally the last game of the tournament, and it's just going a little longer than necessary, and I'm like, I gotta peace out because I've got some questions to answer, so I'm gonna make this quick, right, then, so I can get back and commiserate with the team as well, but of course, right, obligation to get things done. So I wanted to use this episode as a recap of my experience on face-to-face with Aaron O'Toole on CBC on the National, and I wanted to make sure that there was some feedback on it, like whether it was going to be based on questions that I've received about it or important points that got omitted during production, which was something that I assumed would happen and take a while to guess. It totally did. As an aside, that you can feel free to check out my personal YouTube channel. My most recent video, at least as of the moment of me rattling off here, is a review of the experience, and more particularly about how the expected transphobic behavior would happen, which did happen. I actually also followed up with CBC about that personally via an email, and let them know that I don't think it's cool that on the topic of bigotry and transphobia for them to cater my appearance to what they feel Canada wants to see. So totally check that out. It's about 18 minutes long, and well, let's just say that even the ombudsman, CBC's ombudsman, has suggested to their editor-in-chief to get back to me of the concerns. So we'll see what happens. Points of the experience. First, I'm really grateful for people who have shared gratitude for the opportunity to be on there and provide some added visibility, which is utterly fantastic, and I'm happy to be able to share that visibility, which is awesome. And then equally enough with that, we're kind of like I was alluding to a few moments ago, that aside from the visibility, I knew that there was going to create an opportunity for see you later. There was an opportunity for, it was going to be a win-win either way. Either something was going to be done authentically, which is fantastic, or it was going to be done in a way that I knew was going to be edited, and I'd be able to speak up about that experience. So the gratitude for people for being able to do it, the gratitude for CBC to be able to do the event in the first place as well is fantastic too. Like, to have a trans individual speak on national TV on something politically based is not common. So I certainly look at those opportunities and respect them, and I'm grateful for them. And I hope that by my follow-up, it will also create that recognition that we're not just sports and karaoke or whatever. Part of the reason why, in this case, when I was like, I left it like as of last week because I didn't know what the results were going to be, I'd like to point out points as to things that got omitted, where, as I alluded to, the interview itself, I totally understand that the production of it has limited timing and this and that and whatever, but one key point that got omitted from our visibility right off the hop was an exchange of pronouns. And Aaron O'Toole acknowledged usage of pronouns, shared his, and actually, as a matter of fact, offered to use they as well. So CBC edited out pronoun usage, which, what was the reason for that? Part of my email. There's no reason to do that. Right? Pronouns are valid, pronouns are meaningful. Right? So that got edited out. And I feel strongly that for people who share the same concerns about minimizing visibility to, again, check out my YouTube channel, see my last video about my review of the experience, and absolutely offer your feedback to CBC2 and express that there are valid points and concerns of visibility that, you know, if we want to go ahead and minimize bigotry and transphobia, stop enabling it with bigotry and transphobic behavior, right? Right. So that's something where that comes in my head is to, why'd you take that out, CBC, right? Like, what, were we running out of time? I don't think that's when it came to the interview otherwise, it was negotiated in terms of questioning, because for myself, that the language that I wanted to use were stronger. Words that I wanted to use would have been more resonating, would have captured ears a little more, would have created a little more discussion. But according to the producer, Canada doesn't want to hear that. So that was a takeaway as well about, instead of actually having something legitimately focused on undecided voters and the concerns that they have, they still wanted to just frame it in how they would like to sell the show, right? I don't think that was appropriate, all things considered, and again, especially considering the topic. About undecided voters, people have asked me, like, why, like, how undecided are you? And one thing in my video bio that got edited out, I made it very, very clear, as a matter of fact. My human rights aren't my only value. There's no question that what other values of mine truly matter if bigotry and transphobia continue to advance at the rate that they do, and the violence that comes along with it, right? And so, aside from the rest of the platform, and don't get me wrong, that it's not like I was an automatic, like, it's not like I was really too much on the fence, but if there was a hyper-aggressive acknowledgement of ending bigotry and transphobia, it might have captured my ear, because I was already confident in, like, again, I've said before, I was confident about red and blue, or pardon me, red and orange were gonna say, and so I wanted to hear from blue. I wanted to hear what they would say, because again, that like, for all intents and purposes, I'm a single issue voter, and if there was 100% aggressive acknowledgement of, you're right, this is screwed up, and here's what I plan to do about it, it may have had my ear. Unfortunately, like I said, yay! Unfortunately, CBC took away a lot of that voice, which didn't even give me the opportunity to ask my legitimate concern. So, yay! So that that's why I wanted to take advantage of that opportunity, because, as I mentioned, that I wanted to challenge him on stuff like, how firm are you on, like, that this isn't just Cheers Against Queers and you're asking your party to be nice to queer people. It's like, what are you going to do to go ahead and actually aggressively acknowledge misinformation? What are you going to do to actively engage and put an end to an abuse of freedom of speech and mitigate misinformation, and so on and so on and so on, right? But CBC says, right, no, Canada doesn't want to hear that. So whatever, it is what it is. I'll just go the long way then, which is perfectly fine by me too. So that's why I was excited to take advantage of the opportunity, because it was a meaningful question, something that I hope would resonate with a party leader. And at this point, I didn't get the answer that I wanted, and Canada didn't get the question that they had all the right to hear. So can't really speak much on that, and I can only hope that the decision makers think about that, of what their decisions may or may not have done for the country. Other questions that I've captured from the experience overall of why would they take questions out of the bio, or topics, like actual talking points, which may or may not actually impact the result of the conversation, because I know that Rosie Barton had some like a basic synopsis of like my own questions too. Aaron O'Toole, from what I understand, is pretty much flying blind. And of course then Rosie Barton would be using her own information that she knows to go ahead and dictate a conversation accordingly. And so because of that, the conversation was not really much about my concern. So stuff in the video bio that got removed, again, if you take a listen to my expression on my YouTube channel, I commented about fundraising for women's mental health awareness. I commented on the development or the creation and development of Higher Weller and its purpose of assisting trans individuals with online abuse, challenging political leaders to encourage businesses to run at a higher level of their corporate social responsibilities. They removed the opportunity to say that I feel very strongly about how the inclusion of two-spirit, transgender, and non-binary athletes in all sports at all levels across the board in Canada is critical in terms of establishing, essentially being a cornerstone for helping develop diversity and inclusion and equity in our country because of how rooted sports and culture are within each other. Like, they're very much intertwined. And so by creating that pretty much acceptance at that level communicates and resonates in so many ways. And for that to get taken out, no big deal, right? Clearly nobody cares about that. Clearly nobody's using their brain over at CBC when it came to those types of decisions. So I am looking forward to hearing back from the editor-in-chief about decisions that they made. When it even came to the I'm an undecided voter, they completely mutilated the line that I even provided. I'm trying to think of what it was off the top of my head, but it was something along the lines of, I want to know more about what's going to be done to end bigotry and transphobia, and particularly by taking the encumbrance off of the victims and to be put onto the abusers who feel like there's no consequence for their discrimination. Those are all powerful and meaningful things that CBC's like, yeah, no, Canada doesn't need to hear that way, they need to hear those things. We'll just go ahead and bill Taylor as somebody who loves sports and karaoke because that's the only thing that people would want to know. So that's kind of like the long and short of my experience. And those are questions that I've fielded in a longer way in that YouTube channel, because it can't really ask more aside from, like I said, what I put out there, what I've shared, what I put in an email to CBC production team, a bunch of media and journalists, a bunch of personal contacts, right? Other people who support Higher Weller, right? Just send it out there and make sure to just advance that visibility of, like, those were valid things that got removed and why would you do that? And then aside from that, just on other social media, right, I scooped up some questions that I've been asked otherwise, where there were a couple things that weren't even just questions, but more like tells or wants or something. And so I'd like to address them again, even though I've done before, where one of them, it was a user saying that, I hope you made that bigoted fuck squirm. And that's not my position. It's not my job to make people uncomfortable. And why would I want to do that? Why would I want to go ahead and intentionally make people feel uncomfortable? Because the only way to go ahead and get a bigot to reframe their state of mind is not by force, because then all they do is end up being resentful, they end up being spiteful, and then they actually don't participate at all in terms of growth. What they need to do is have a personal resonance, something actually clicking with them so that they realize the errors in their ways. And so with education and understanding is the key to creating those things. Now that doesn't necessarily mean it needs to be all head patting, right? Because you can still use strong, powerful words and be like, oh shit, wow, I didn't realize or didn't think about that or whatever. So, and also with that is it's not a debate, right? It's not a format where I get to go ahead and pin him in the corner and start yelling at him about abuse of trans rights or anything like that. I just, had a certain period of time, and I just made sure to be respectful and not interrupt or anything like that, and pretty much whatever happened. I did the best I could with the resources that I had available. I remember watching, right, in a playback where it felt a lot of ums and ahs coming from Aaron O'Toole, but again, being a politician, like every answer that was provided was a non-answer, so what do you expect out of that, right? Please make him look bad. It's my responsibility as an LGBT person to ensure conservatives don't get elected. It's not my responsibility to do that. And I commented on that. That's totally unreasonable to put that responsibility on myself. And two things, right? It's, again, not my job to make somebody look bad. I'll speak objectively, and the opinion of others is all them, right? My job isn't even a job. Speak respectfully, speak objectively, and let the opinions lie on others. And even when it comes to that, how much more am I supposed to do to ensure that, trans individuals are valid, trans individuals are safe, trans individuals get respected, trans individuals get represented? How much more am I supposed to do? And how much more is the rest of our community supposed to do? If I had to go ahead and put an accountability on anyone to ensure that the next election, or this upcoming election, as a matter of fact, tomorrow, by the way, please vote, is successful for diversity, equity, inclusion, I'd be looking at allies. I'd be looking at undecided voters and get them to be the ones to carry the luggage, because for the most part, people who value their human rights or are concerned about losing theirs already have an idea who they're voting for. It's everyone else who needs to go ahead and look at people around. So, how do you? This was a good one. How do you honestly feel that interview went? It's not what I wanted. It was exactly as I expected, but it wasn't what I wanted. It was 100% exactly as I expected. 100% exactly as I expected. So I played the game. I got my name out there. I got some visibility, got some attention, got some good talk about that. More than happy to do it. Would be more than happy to do it again. I'll do it over and over and over and over and over. But the removal of my authenticity was not surprised, but not welcome. So I felt I was just a talking piece, which again, that's just coming from the inside, knowing what the experience was like. I don't know if other people looked at it like that, but the interview was meaningful. It was meaningful, but I don't feel it was as resonating as much as I know that the opportunity could have been if it was handled with diligence. Just watched it. You were awesome. O'Toole seemed nervous. Thank you. I've gotten a lot of feedback about people saying that I was awesome, and some of the words, and I really appreciate that. I wouldn't say O'Toole was nervous. O'Toole was a politician. Right? He wasn't nervous. He was looking how to non-answer without saying anything offensive or accidental. Is pretty much what it was. Actually, there's another question coming up that I'll dip in on it. But I wouldn't say he was nervous, but what I do know is, if there was an opportunity to have a conversation across the table, it'd be fun. It'd be fun. Cool, sounds like a good opportunity for me. I appreciate the visibility, right? That's I appreciate the visibility. I'm doing what I can to advocate with all my available time that I can advocate with. So I appreciate having a name out there. I appreciate advancing that. It's crazy. I was actually literally just talking to a friend of mine a couple moments ago that I haven't even been socially full-time for over a year. September 24th is when I came out socially full-time, and it's only September 20th, and look at this resume. How awesome is that? But I'm doing what I can, right, to make attention. What's in the back here? Why are they only going after O'Toole? Well, not, because if you pay attention to the series of the show, it's 4 voters, 4 undecided voters, 4 party leaders on 4 days, right? So overall, there were 16 voters, right? And questions were just set accordingly. For example, I on True talking about racism, right? So there are important questions that are across the board. There's nobody targeting anybody. This was just kind of a side one, but I think it's because of also just my articulation. You know, the whole point of acronyms is to make stuff shorter, not longer, right? No, first, that's not the definition of acronym. And second is removing the visibility by making it convenient for people who don't want to provide visibility is hardly inclusive. So I will say to us LGBTQIA+, way before I say something like, well, what was it being pressed against? GSM. And every time I kept saying GSM written, I'm like, what are we talking about, like cell phone services, right? That's my first thought when I think cell phone service. GSM, right, in context stands for gender and sexual minorities, but again, that by definition is diverse, but it's also very, well, it's not inclusive, right? It doesn't give that visibility. It doesn't give talking points. It doesn't give talking points. So acronyms are not about making things shorter, and they're definitely not about taking the visibility away from others. So no, I don't know that point that you're trying to say, because that's wrong. What response were you hoping from O'Toole when you asked him what he's going to do to combat bigotry and or combat the bigotry trans people face? That was a really good question. I loved that one, actually. And if I remember, I responded with 3 talking points. One was addressing freedom of speech, especially if I was enabled to use the language that I wanted to use. And since I wasn't able to use the language I wanted to use, because Canada doesn't want to hear that, I couldn't get that type of answer, because why would he want to know that being an answer, right? So that was one. The second was ensuring and advocating that his entire party is aligned on trans rights, right? Like, let's put it this way. The Liberal Party and the NDP Party, even though that they're individual members, may all have independent values. When they are doing fancy government things, they vote as a unit, right? So like whatever is being attempted to be passed or whatnot, they vote as an entire unit. They speak together, while the Conservative Party does not do that. And that's a big challenge when it comes to stuff. Obviously, a talking point with that was Bill C-6 and how some members of the Conservative Party voted against the ban of conversion therapy. Just FYI, human rights are non-negotiable. Just slinging that out there. So could have addressed that about ensuring unity in topics like that. That was skipped. And then even he's all in on police, right? And he's all in on police and pride. Like he'll only march in pride if uniformed police officers can be there, and so on and so on and so on. So if he's all in on police, then be all in on ensuring that authorities and anything on the equivalent are up to date and educated on what human rights issues are, and also to recognize bigotry and hate-based abuse in a more proactive instead of reactive manner. Those are all options that I'd be more than willing to hear, but of course I hear just a bunch of non-answers about him, right? I wasn't surprised by not hearing answers, but again, put it on the table and see what would happen out of it. Who gives a flying fuck about a trans person running as a conservative? Well, as a matter of fact, a lot of trans individuals not necessarily care, but it's important to know about, because like, if the Conservative Party as a platform is not, like, actually, let's put it this way, kind of back to the exact same point I was talking about. Imagine, so this, her name's Hannah, she's running in Victoria, BC, and imagine if, like, just think of using conversion therapy again as an example, and Hannah, of course, is against like conversion therapy existing, right? So she would vote for banning it. But imagine just sitting with your team as a trans woman, and you're voting to, like, let's end this practice because it's despicable. And there are people on your team who'd be like, nah, just pray the gay away or whatever it is that they're concerned about. Can you imagine just like, how do you go to work the next day when people beside you who are supposed to be your friends and buddies, like in principle, just dehumanize you? So yeah, a lot of people should care. A lot of people should care. Starting with Hannah. And even with that, during the interview, does anyone not agree that that probably would have been the most ideal time for Aaron O'Toole to point out that there's a trans woman running as a candidate in his party? He's more than happy to tell me about being super proud about a gay party member in Ontario, but completely omitted sharing that there's a trans woman running for his party in Victoria. So hey, Hannah, just in case you happen to trip over this before tomorrow, your party leader either forgot about you or doesn't want people to know about you, or fuck whatever. It doesn't really matter. There's no good reason why that was not brought forward, especially as a leader. So yeah, who cares? A lot of people should care. Maybe don't assume Aaron had negative intention when he didn't mention his one candidate. Nobody says that there's a negative intention. I don't remember ever saying anything like that. It was an observation. And especially considering the principle of the opportunity and the topic, it's not a bad thing to hold Aaron O'Toole accountable for not acknowledging having a trans individual in his party. Simple as that. So, yeah, all in on inclusivity, but you remember who's working with you. That's kind of baloney. So that's kind of the long and short of it. I just wanted to give a really quick recap on the event because, like I said, it could have been one of two things. It could have been authentic and powerful, or it could have been doctored. I was expecting it to be doctored, and so be it. And the rest is history. So really happy to have the opportunity. Would be more than happy to do it again, like I said. I love all the feedback that I've gotten from people. I love the visibility. I love the promotion. It's cool to see some emails, right, from like magazines and whatnot, promoting the event and whatever. So that was super neat. Happy to hear the ombudsman heard my concern same day and said that he's directing the editor-in-chief to get a hold of me. And so we'll just see where it comes from that, because trans individuals are more than just sports and karaoke. Heaven forbid that we're actually trying to do good things because other people don't have the courage to, right? And I don't mean other people like trans individuals who are just making it through the day, but I mean allies who are looking up for us, or, you know, politicians who think that maybe they should just not look at themselves for a day and so on. So heaven forbid that people are looking to create meaningful change on behalf of others, right? And to have that stripped away on that type of stage is quite, especially on the topic of bigotry and transphobia. How did I put it in my email? Misguided at best and hypocritical at worst. Such is life. I'm going to wrap up. That game's done. I think we won. That was neat. Go catch up with the rest of the squad. Happy everyone was able to tune in, and we'll pick up where we left off next week. That grab bag is huge, and loving all the questions. Keep them coming, and see what next week has in store. So talk to you later. All right. Bye.